First, the top news headlines. Prime Minister Modi hits out at Congress, says Congress focused on looting Manipur. Congress leaders known as Mr. 10%. Shiv Sena and PP Congress JDU candidates of Hanglep Assembly constituency demand re-election at 23 polling stations. INC candidate of Saitu Assembly constituency Lantin Thang Haukip released unconditionally. Hello and a very good evening. You're watching the Mami TV English News Bulletin. I'm ALBINA RIAMEI. Hitting out at the Congress party, Prime Minister Narendra Modi alleged that Congress looted Manipur instead of bringing development during its rule in the state and mocked that the Congress leaders were known as Mr. 10%. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was addressing a virtual election rally held at Khangabok Multi-Purpose Multidimensional Research Center today. He further stated that people of the state faced a lot of hardship due to frequent bans and blockade during Congress rule. But with the coming of BJP to power, Manipur is becoming the gateway of India's export and international trade. He reiterated that the BJP government has been giving extra focus on the development of Northeast region, particularly Manipur. He recounted that former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, during his rule, established a special department for the development of the Northeast region. However, the Congress-led UPA government, which came to power in 2004, sidelined the department. He also alleged that Congress adopted divide and rule policy and encouraged separatism. Modi also reiterated that BJP will win the 12th Manipur Legislative Assembly elections by getting absolute majority.
जोड़ने वाले अभियान चला रही हैं, जिसके कारण इनके षड्यंत्र टूट रहे हैं और जैसे जैसे कांग्रेस की बांटो और राज करो की नीति ध्वस्त हो रही है, वैसे वैसे ही कांग्रेस पार्टी भी ध्वस्त हो रही है। भाइयों और बहनों, भाजपा के लिए मणिपुर और पूर्वोत्तर हमारी राष्ट्रीय एकता और राष्ट्रीय आस्था का केंद्र है।
The virtual rally addressed by Prime Minister was also witnessed by attendees of a public meeting held at Kakching Turel Wangma Community Hall. Speaking on the occasion, Works Minister T.H. Bishwajit said BJP's other name is Development, Peace and Prosperity. The party gave its ticket for Kakching AC to Y. Surchandra, who has been sacrificing for the people of the AC, as saffron in BJP signifies sacrifice. Besides being an important junction of South Manipur, Kakching is a commercial hub. To bring further development in the AC, Bishwajit sought people's support in electing Surchandra as a representative of the AC. Candidates of Shiv Sena, NPP, Congress and JDU of Hanglep Assembly constituency for the first phase of election to the 12th Manipur Legislative Assembly held yesterday sent a letter to District Election Officer DEO of Churachandpur for repoll at 23 polling stations in the AC. Shiv Sena candidate of the AC, T. Thangjalam Haukip, said 3 proscribed militant groups under suspension of operation openly supported BJP candidate in the AC. Addressing the media today at Shiv Sena office at Babupara, Thangjalam said 3 proscribed militant groups under SOO along with BJP workers threatened the voters in every polling stations of the AC. to make sure that BJP gets 70 to 80% votes. The candidates of the 4 political parties went for inspection in different polling stations. During the inspection, around 12 persons in polling stations formed by 4 villages carried out proxy for BJP over and over again. At the same polling, no senior citizens stood on queue nor had ink mark on their hands. In one polling, his polling agent was absent. At a polling station at Khoirentak, some cadres of militant groups stopped Congress and NPP candidates from entering. While around 30 youths carried out proxy in Khao Sanbung polling, BSF personnel stationed on duty failed to discharge proper duty. A BJP agent sneaked in a hammer with the intention to destroy EVM at Lailong, he said. Condemning the incident as undemocratic, Thangjalam said it was not a free and fair election. As such, candidates of Shiv Sena, Congress, NPP and JDU appealed to DEO of Churachandpur for repoll in 23 polling stations, Thangjalam said.
Polling station amada kungang mari pulada. Kungang mari dugi kungang amamamda moina mi trani thoi si khangallaga. Paisa si karha piramgani aduga moina tambal je pamarka adanam gada bani hairaga. Tobasi koina pau. Pangmase ajo angan boy candidate mari se. BJP candidate nataba candidate mari habde ayakne Congress ki candidate ne NPP candidate ne JDU ke candidate ne koine area khadu naraga isa ki haiba responsibility pobe daga jaga yengkanda moina hanna piramba diktat matunginna naharon lisa pakang chai sudirwa mi jawi moisi line da leraga kungang gi mi alam amata thor moina toge haibisidi naharon si naharon habidi weekly sa pakang mayam si mohoina hanna na chang na bhai duna presiding officer su convince towi moigi finger da muk marking leiti.
Attending the press meet, President of Shiv Sena Manipur State and Tombi said they will inform Election Commission of India ECI about intimidating the people of the AC by BJP candidate with 3 militant groups under SOO. Adding that he will bring up the matter to Parliament, Tombi said yesterday's election was selected and not elected.
vote tada ger la ko bidu receipt mul go nomai no namdara vote adu thado natra gadi vote thado biar hai gumba adagi adu the vote pi gadi na hai yara adu ga polling station to vote yam phangoi kai na har ga EVM machine thuai ba mun ba kari no leba si to ri kari no anga phai gi khoi gi administration number of the latung tawre ba si ko phong na ga support tawni kai na la lo group amana ga hai ba si Masih si karino kamai to uno atai diri to ya dobro gamen paibagi adu ki candidate khuk tudura ba praja thagar pa mise namna kahan pa mise adu dra ba praja ki apa mudu ke dobugi thaidu ga moidu inthu ga forcibly karna ba elected nataba selected ki kainom sangsel lesi kari gino ba
INC candidate in Saitu Assembly constituency Lantin Thang Haukip has been released unconditionally by police around 1 a.m. on Tuesday after several sections of people, including tribal students' unions, mounted pressure on the authority. It is said that the INC candidate rushed to New Kaithalmanbi polling station as they received the information that some suspected militants were allegedly trying to capture the booth and snatch voter slips. However, the police arrested him and took him to the Imphal police station. Claiming he was innocent, people in the constituency had declared an indefinite lockdown. The lockdown was withdrawn after Lantin Thang Haukip was set free. NPP candidate of Kairao Assembly constituency Mohammad Nasiruddin has informed that complaints have been lodged to Chief Electoral Officer for repoll in 8 polling stations in the AC where he alleged that only BJP agents were allowed access in the first phase of the 12th Manipur Legislative Assembly election held yesterday. Speaking to media persons at a press meet held at his residence yesterday, Nasiruddin said no other agents except for BJP were allowed in the 8 polling stations of Kairao AC, namely polling station number 6/32, 6/36, 6/38, 6/13, 6/15, 6/14, 6/37 and 6/31, stating that he went to polling station number 6/32, Punal Marine, where the NPP agents were restricted. The candidate added that the supporters of other political parties who were already there started vandalizing vehicles. Stating that yesterday's election in the AC was far from being free and fair, he said that such violation of the rights of the people has never happened in the AC. Nasiruddin also urged the ECI to look into matter and conduct re-poll in the 8 polling stations. As a part of election campaign for INC candidate of Suknu Assembly constituency K. Ranjit for the second phase of election to the 12th Manipur Legislative Assembly, Congress Election Campaign Committee Wangu organized a car rally. The car rally began from Wangu Sandang Khong Ward number 2, passed through Chairel, Khongyam and Tangjeng and reached Suknu Bazaar. The rally also covered Suknu Wapokpi, Korsantabi, Pangantabi, Kakching Khunau and Waikong and finally culminated in Wangu. Taking part in the car rally, leader of Congress Election Campaign Committee Wangu Thaudam Damen said the car rally was organized to show that full support of the people of Wangu to INC candidate of Suknu AC K. Ranjit. He sought people's support for Ranjit's win in the election.
Suknu Kendra da ikoina Normal MLA se phai haibagi message pin na bagida mukta ikoi Wangu gi miamna chumdagi mi amamam dang thorakpada mi lisingama sani laga ikoi ngasige car leli haibe tare light vehicle masagi gari se laga Suknu miamda onebe MLA amukan na mai park ni ikoi Wangu na soke matik yamna support tawi haibe se unna na bagida mukta ngasi se ikoi sinjaraga sugumba leliasi lagjabane.
President of All Manipur Muslim Students Organization, AMSO, Kulakpam Ayub Sa, has termed it unfortunate that the government has been turning a deaf ear to repeated demand of AMSO to change the VC of Manipur Technical University, MTU, who was appointed against the rule. Speaking to media persons at a press meet held at the organization's office at Hatta today, Kulakpam Ayub Shah said after thorough research, AMSO found out that VC of MTU, Dr. Badeshwar Tongbram, is not qualified to be the VC of the university. AMSO had carried out various forms of agitations, including locking of the VC's office and the administrative block of the varsity with regard to the same. He further alleged MTU of trying to subdue the matter instead of trying to resolve it and maintained that AMSO can never accept it. Ayub also urged the people of the state and civil society organizations to support the movement of AMSO to rectify the irregularities at the university. India reported at least 6,950 new COVID-19 cases with 119 deaths, 14% lower than yesterday's daily spike in the last 24 hours. According to Union Health Ministry, India's total tally of COVID-19 cases rose to 4.29 crore and the death toll climbed to 5.13 lakh. Meanwhile, India's active caseload presently stands at 92,472 and the active cases constitute 0.22% of the country's total positive cases. Further, with 16,864 patients recovered in the last 24 hours, the cumulative tally of recovered patients stood at 4.23 crore. Consequently, India's recovery rate stands at 98.59%. On the other hand, with the administration of more than 18 lakh vaccine doses in the last 24 hours, India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage has exceeded 177.70 crore across the country. An Indian student lost his life in shelling in Ukraine this morning, the foreign ministry said. The student from Karnataka's Haveri died when Russian soldiers blew up a government building today. External Affairs Ministry tweeted that he conveyed his deepest condolences to the family. The student who lost his life had gone out for food, said Pooja Praharaj, a student coordinator in Kharkiv. He added that he had only gone to get food and had been standing in the queue for an hour or two. Suddenly, there was an airstrike that blew up the governor's house and he was killed, Praharach said. The student coordinator, a Ukrainian woman, picked up his phone and she said the owner of this phone had been taken to the morgue. Meanwhile, this morning, the Indian embassy advised all citizens, including students, to leave Ukraine capital Kyiv urgently today by trains or any other means available. After a series of meetings yesterday regarding the developments in war-torn Ukraine, Prime Minister Narendra Modi this morning met President Ramnath Kovind to brief him on various issues, including the Ukraine crisis, sources said. The Prime Minister reportedly briefed him on India's efforts to bring back students and other Indian nationals who have been stranded in Ukraine even as the war rages on. The Indian government has launched Operation Ganga to evacuate its nationals through Ukraine's neighboring countries, amid mounting criticism of India's evacuation efforts as stranded students flooded social media with frantic appeals for help. Prime Minister Modi held 3 meetings yesterday and assured that the entire government machinery is working round the clock to ensure that all Indian nationals there are safe and secure in Ukraine. 4 senior ministers have been assigned to oversee evacuation efforts from the border countries to energize the evacuation efforts. Minister Hardeep Puri, Jyotiraditya Scindia, Kiren Rijiju and VK Singh will travel to the countries surrounding Ukraine as special Indian envoys to help with the evacuation. Jyotiraditya Scindia will be in charge of Romania and Moldova. Kiren Rijiju will fly to Slovakia. Hardeep Puri will go to Hungary and VK Singh will be in Poland. Meanwhile, amid the deepening crisis in Ukraine, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has pressed the Indian Air Force into service to evacuate Indian nationals stranded in the war-torn country, sources said. Joining the evacuation efforts as part of the Indian government's Operation Ganga from today, the IAF is likely to deploy several C-17 aircraft to bring back Indians stuck in Ukraine in the midst of a Russian invasion, sources said. The IAF aircraft will also help deliver humanitarian aid more efficiently to Ukraine, which is experiencing a shortage of food, fuel, medical supplies and other essentials as Russian forces press their advance in the country. The government launched Operation Ganga to rescue Indian citizens, mostly students, from Ukraine, which was invaded by Russia 6 days ago. So far, 1,396 Indian nationals have been brought back from Ukraine in 6 evacuation flights. Hit by crippling sanctions and facing boycotts in every sphere following its invasion of Ukraine, Russia has now started targeting residential and administrative buildings in major cities such as Kyiv and Kharkiv. A video shared by Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Twitter shows an administrative building in Kharkiv, Ukraine's second major city after Kyiv, go up in flames after a Russian missile hits it. Accusing Russia of targeting civilians in violation of international laws, the Ukrainian ministry tweeted that Russia is waging war in violation of international humanitarian law, kills civilians, destroys civilian infrastructure. Russia's main target is large cities that now fired at by its missiles. Before we end the bulletin, let's look at the top news headlines once again. Prime Minister Modi hits out at Congress, says Congress focused on looting Manipur. Congress leaders known as Mr. 10%. Shiv Sena, NPP, Congress, JDU candidates of Hanglap Assembly constituency demand re-election at 23 polling stations. INC candidate of Saitu Assembly constituency Lanting Thang Hau Kip released unconditionally. That's all for today. Thank you for joining us. Have a great time ahead.